Yeah, we are back. Do you remember Monster Energy Supercross? Do you remember the Weege Show, brought to you by the Honda Talon Sport Side-by-Side? I'll tell you what, it'd be fun to rip up a facility like this in a Honda Talon Sport Side-by-Side. They've got 4-door models for the family. They've got 2-seater models for you and just your lovely sidekick. And you can rip it up with an exclusive dual clutch, paddle shifted transmission, 1000 cc's of power, up to 20.1 inches of wheel travel, even the Fox live valve shocks available. They just announced some special editions of the Honda Talon. Check it out on the Honda site and get yourself one. It'd be really fun to take it out on this track. Now we've had a huge break in Supercross, 2 weekends as the riders would say, really 3 weeks. And then we are welcome back with a huge Supercross track. We are at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're not in the now defunct Georgia Dome. We are not in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This is the NASCAR track about 45 minutes south of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And this is a massive Supercross track. I don't have all the data through the years, but I think this might be the biggest Supercross track ever. This is much larger than Daytona. Now Daytona back in the day used to go all the way in the back of the facility, so maybe those old Daytona races from the 70s were bigger than this. But in modern history, this is, as one of the Honda guys told me this afternoon, it's like a Supercross track on steroids. But you don't need me to tell you the story. I'm actually gonna hook up with Mike Muye, the director of Supercross, who will give you all the stats about just how big this track is, and then I'll show it to you, as we call it, B-roll in the business. I'll walk around while Muye's explaining it to you. Director of Supercross, that sounds really impressive, but the thing is, we always ask about racetracks, and it's all, some of it's up here, a blueprint in your mind. Give me some numbers, because this looks way bigger than a regular Supercross. Is it actually?
It is definitely bigger than a regular Supercross, and I can't take all the credit. The hard work goes to Dirtworks, but all right. We have over 14,000 cubic yards here. Just for comparison, regular Supercross track, like for example in Arlington, is 5,000. So we have almost triple the amount of dirt here. Nice. Actual racetrack length, we're approaching the 5,000 foot mark. Again, comparatively to Arlington, we're in the 1,800, 1,900 ballpark.
So more than double the length.
More than double the length and track.
Wow. Yeah. You almost got a mile-long Supercross track.
Almost, almost, yeah.
So that leads to my next question. How do you ensure that they're not going 80 miles an hour at the end of a lane, a rhythm lane or something like that?
Yeah, so I mean, Dirtworks has been doing this for 30 years. We've been around. Really, it comes down to kind of a little bit of massaging of the track. Yeah. We built it with that in mind and keeping the speed slow where we need to keep them slow. Yep. So the rhythm lanes really aren't a whole lot longer than a traditional Supercross. Okay. And then they come into a checkup section. For example, down here by the first tunnel, you know, there's a S-curve to kind of slow them down a little bit, go into the tunnel, and then they can gain their speed again. When you get to the faster sections, like the sand sections and things like that, immediately after they come into a checkup. We'll watch it throughout practice. We'll talk to the riders, get feedback from them and the race team managers, etc., and we'll adjust where we need to. First and foremost, we want to make sure it's safe, but also it produces great racing. So we'll make adjustments throughout the day tomorrow as we learn more and more.
Are the lanes any wider, actually? Are you able to do that, or is that basically the standard Supercross thing?
No, it's standard Supercross. Yeah. So they're 22 feet plus the tough blocks. That brings it down to 20.
Look, all of a sudden we go from, they've never really had events like this here. We not only have this, but Monster Jam's coming for five shows.
Yes, sir. 3
Supercrosses, and then American Flat Track's coming in on dirt also. What changed all of a sudden? Atlanta Motor Speedway is like the home of dirt.
Opportunity. Yeah. We've talked with this facility quite a bit. You know, we've known it's been down here. They've really wanted to bring Supercross to their venue here. The stars aligned. It made sense to do it this year. A little bit of a unique year, as we know, and you know, we're excited. We're excited to have Supercross here. We're excited to have Monster Jam here in a couple weeks, and then American Flat Track. It was great to be able to work with that crew over there, and all 3 combined groups came together to lay out the track so it works for everybody. So the lanes that you see, well, of course, the Monster Jam track isn't going to have Supercross lanes in it. Yeah. The dirt isn't going to expand anymore, go into the grass or onto the NASCAR track more or anything like that. So.
Oh yeah, you mentioned something interesting. We were talking earlier, compared to Daytona, the high banks of Daytona are so steep, you can't really bring the dirt up on it. where you have that option here. So that's one of the reasons you get a little more room, because I think everybody's looking at it and just comparing to Daytona.
Yep.
You can't really make that comparison. It's not the same.
Exactly. So the Daytona finish line in their tri-oval, I don't know the exact degree, but it's pretty steep, especially if you've stood you know. This is a lot more laid down. So actually, if you look at the finish line, and I'm sure you'll see it on TV on NBC, you'll notice that half of the NASCAR track is taken up by our racetrack. Which isn't something that they'd be able to do in Daytona.
And the last thing, when we hear that a track is 3 times the length and 3 times the amount of dirt, et cetera, how are you getting all this dirt? Where does that happen?
So we got lucky.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. We got really lucky. Right out back, we found a nice little patch that, had conveniently 14,000 yards, just enough for us, right? And we brought that in. It's great dirt. You can look relatively minimal rock content. It is clay based, but unique to Georgia. Normally it's all clay. We got a pretty good mixture here. I'd say 70% clay, 30% sand. You know, so obviously we're expecting weather tomorrow, hence the reason the track's covered. That sand content's going to come into play, I think, and help us out quite a bit come the afternoon.
So it is not the dirt that we would have seen in Mercedes-Benz Stadium or Georgia Dome back in the day. It's different dirt.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's, we're about 40 minutes from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it'd be a long truck route.
All right, you lucked out. You found a great place and it had dirt. So we get a mile long, nearly 5,000 feet. That's about it. Supercross track. All right, thanks, Mike.
Cool, thank you.
All right, that is really good stuff from Mike Muye here. He knows all the angles. Yes, it is more than double the length, the actual amount of footage around a lap compared to what we saw just the last time out at Arlington, more than 3 times the amount of dirt as Arlington. So it is truly Supercross on steroids. Everything's a little bit bigger. I mean, even this rhythm lane coming in and out of this corner. And then look at this. It's a 12-foot berm. Now, between you and me, don't tell anybody this. Don't tell anybody this. This berm is not necessarily bigger because the bikes need to go higher in the berm. They're actually gonna have the Monster Jam truck, Todd LeDuc, one of the very famous Monster Jam drivers, gonna come out and use this berm and an obstacle to perform a big stunt tomorrow night. So if you're in the area, you really wanna come down to see some history made, to see this ridiculously huge Supercross track and some Monster Jam action. If you're not able to make it, it's live on NBC tomorrow afternoon. It's an afternoon race on the regular NBC network, which is a really big deal for the sport. And I know you're also probably worried about the weather. There is a hint of rain tomorrow, a hint. Now the actual forecast is more than a hint, but let me tell you, I was at Daytona where there was a 100% chance of rain, and it didn't rain. And they got this track covered. I was really worried that they wouldn't be able to cover this track as effectively as they do in the normal stadium tracks, but they've got it covered. They did not have press day riding today because it was, guess what? Supposed to rain this afternoon on Friday. It did not, so far so good. And in addition, if you see these grass sections in the middle, they actually left grass where there's drainage and they tried to build the track. It just sinks in just a little bit where those Monster Jam trucks are to try to guide the rain into the drain. So, you know my theory. I've battled with Jason Thomas on this a million times. Never predict a mud race on a Saturday, on a Tuesday. A lot of people on Tuesday are saying, check out the rain forecast. We'll see. It's a slight drizzle right now. The track is super dry. We got drainage, we got tarps, we had a 100% chance of rain at Daytona, and it didn't rain. So I think we're gonna get to see supersized Supercross racing. And if it doesn't happen on Saturday, we got Tuesday and next Saturday to get it in. A dry race. Should be really fun. I can talk about the points and Cooper Webb with a 15-point lead over Ken Roczen right now, but I think you already know the score on that one. And what everybody wants to talk about here is this crazy track and who that might favor. I know that Eli Tomac has been great at Daytona historically, but this is not Daytona. Yes, it is a speedway track, but Daytona's combination of roughness, which comes from sand, obviously lends itself to the 3-time 450 National Motocross champ, Eli Tomac. I'm not sure this is necessarily gonna be like that. Maybe the speeds will be a little higher than a traditional Supercross, although Muye explained that's not really what they anticipate, because they've kind of tuned the lane so they don't go much faster. But as far as that hybrid combination of motocross, supercross, that's still distinctly Daytona only. I don't think you're gonna get that here. So I don't think this track will necessarily favor Tomac more than any other supercross track, which of course Tomac is certainly capable of winning. But this is not Daytona ×3 here in April in Atlanta. It's a totally different animal and should be pretty exciting. Only thing you can't do is take a Honda Talon out and rip around this nice flat track style corner right here. That would be cool. But they're not even gonna let me do that. I'm just glad they let me do the track walk, because the place is so big, I don't think anybody even realizes I'm out here. Here we are all the way on the other side of the Speedway. It's just unimaginable how far from where I started shooting earlier to where I am now. And that alarmed me actually when I saw the track map. I asked my buddy JT, I'm like, dude, how are they not gonna be going 80 miles an hour from when they get to the finish line, which has a double and sand rollers to start, then they go to the finish line, then they work their way all the way through here to this corner. I'm like, JT, how are they not going 80 miles an hour by the time they get here? Yeah, there's a little S-turn kink, but not a full 180. Muye mentioned massaging the track. Well, that's a lot of it. All these jumps are a little steeper, I feel, than the average Supercross jump. That jump a little bit steeper. That roller on the inside of this turn a little steeper, and almost went down. And this double right here, this is an extremely steep face. So you just steepen up those jumps a little bit, they jump higher. We all know how it works. The higher you go, you're not getting that rear wheel on the ground, you're not able to accelerate. So just this double here alone, which is extremely steep, is enough to slow the bikes down and not result in unbelievable speeds. So this is what we've always wanted out of a Supercross track, right? It's big, it's open, it's flowing. I've got to imagine with these big, long rhythm lanes that you're gonna see some combinations and variations, which is what we want, right? And very long lap times. They're thinking if it doesn't rain tomorrow, they're estimating a minute 30 or so. Daytona was about a minute 10. That gives you an idea how much bigger this track even is than Daytona. So it really should be interesting. It's what we've wanted to see. What it really come down to is what the riders think when they actually get to ride it tomorrow. But with the dirt on property and the opportunity to use as much as they wanted, it's really like a blank canvas for the Supercross track builders. They've got the space and the dirt to basically do whatever they wanted. And this is what they've come up with.